But the governor's budget, when it came out, simply eliminated the line that has historically provided the funding for all these schools. And the governor decided that those costs should now be shifted down to local school districts, so that districts who had been making use of our schools for, in some cases, more than 150 years, are now going to be faced with the problem of where do they come up with the additional money to reimburse schools like Mill Neck Manor for our services. It's a tremendous cost shift, and frankly, it's an abandonment of these schools, quite out of the blue and unexpectedly. We have tremendous petition drives going. We have telephone drives going. We've contacted everybody we can think of, and even some people we never thought of, frankly. We're reaching everybody we can to help the legislature find the courage to say to the governor, you had great ideas, but this is not one of them. This was a mistake. This amount of money for supporting these schools needs to be put back in your budget, not taken out. And that's our goal.
It would be awful. It would be awful for the community of students here now, and it would be awful for the students who will need to come here in the future. There really aren't, we looked at a lot of schools, there aren't a lot of schools that could meet the needs of deaf and hard of hearing students. There's less than one in each county in the tri-state area. You'll frequently hear stories about people moving to other locations for their kids to receive the sorts of services and be educated with other deaf and hard of hearing people. I think it would be devastating.
My daughter Annalise has blossomed since she's been here. She's turned into a little young lady who can express herself and be happy and have friends here, friends that speak her language and understand her. She's just grown into such a wonderful little girl, and knowing that this may be taken away, I don't know what would happen to her. She would have a very, very, very difficult time, extremely. It would be a huge mistake if you did this. These children will be lost. I mean, I can't even fathom that this would be a consideration. It's unimaginable to me. It truly is. You have to keep these schools open. You really, really have to. I implore you to do so.
It seems like it may be a quick fix to a budget problem. You look at dollars and say, well, how can I save? But when you really to know what the parents and the kids and the real situation is, it really isn't. You're just shifting the money responsibilities in unnecessary ways that really aren't going to help anybody. I think it's diluting everything. I mean, you have such a good thing that now you're going to cut the budget on it. You're just shifting it to other places, and you're going to have a lot of kids that are going to not get what they need, and a lot of frustrated parents in the end, who are voters and will probably, react.
We want to give the child resources when they're young so that they won't need it as they grow older. And if they cut the funding, you'll have to go to the school district and you won't get that personalized service. You won't get, every child is different. And in school districts, they're used to, they might be familiar with this, my school district is, but each child is different. My child may be good at something where another child may be poor at that. So they know how to deal with all the different, the different ways children act and the different, strengths and weaknesses that the children have. So to not have this program would be, you're giving a child you're not giving them the best advantage for the future.
Mill Neck helps parents as well. Not only do they help the kids, to learn and not need services as they get older, but it helps the parents to understand that your child is going to be fine. I mean, when I first learned that Aaron was hearing impaired, I was devastated. What do I do? Nobody in my family was has hearing aids or hearing impaired, but they taught me that he's going to be fine. They work with you and comfort you and teach you what you need to do, how to handle his equipment, how to work with his equipment, learn about it, troubleshoot his equipment, where I don't get that in the school district. They just, they wouldn't know what to do. And Mill Neck needs places that, well, New York and people need places like Mill Neck in order to have people feel comfortable and know that they'll be okay. There's places for them. Kids will get lost if they have to go back to district, and a place like Mill Neck doesn't exist.
I would hate to see something like this be taken away from a child. I think every child should have the ability to have the proper encouragement and foundation and support systems behind them in order to excel and be who they can be. Just because my child's hard of hearing does not mean that he does not have the ability to become the next President of the United States or whatnot, as long as he has the educational supports to utilize and benefit from to enable him to do that. And I think the governor should really consider, before he just cuts that off from so many children across Long Island and across New York. It just really saddens me that this would be such a big hit and would infringe upon my child and the children of the other parents here today and children across New York, that they would not have that ability and that they might get lost in the mainstream, which I can definitely say my son would be and would not be excelling as he is right now. You're welcome.
I definitely like it much better here at Mill Neck. Because I'm learning sign language here, and I see sign language every day.
And
And I have a lot of friends here, and I'm able to talk with them just like any other kid.
Yes. I'm sorry.
We go outside and we play, we have gym together.
Yeah.
I would be really upset if that were to happen.
Good.
I would be really nervous about going to a different school than Mill Neck.
And it's difficult and it's difficult.
And because it would be a different school, I would be nervous.
I think it's extremely important for the students who come here to attend this type of school because everybody here is the same. Everybody has a disability. And they're not the only deaf person, where if they were mainstream, they would be most likely the only deaf person in a hearing school or a mainstream school. And it's not only for the sign language aspect of it, the language development, but also the cultural aspect of it, developing deaf culture. For their future, after they graduate from Mill Neck, they can continue to be around each other. They'll have people to socialize with. The emotional aspect of it and the educational aspect of it for them is incredibly important. And I know that a lot of these kids, once they leave Mill Neck at the end of the day, they go home and they're lonely and they're alone. And so to put these kids into a mainstream setting, I think it would be very difficult for them communication-wise. Having them here, communication is successful. In a public school, they wouldn't be in a signing environment. Their home life is also so frustrating for so many of them because they don't have sign language in the home. So why make it worse by closing the schools that have actually given them a place? In my opinion, we need to keep schools for the deaf in New York State alive. I mean, it would be very embarrassing for New York State not to have schools for the deaf. while other states continue to provide those services for deaf students. To transfer funding to school districts and allow them to handle the deaf students, I think would be devastating. It would have a devastating effect on those students. So I would beg the governor to actually change his decision and continue funding for the 4201 schools directly. Please. Oh, I completely disagree with the cutting of the 4201 funding, because the students who I'm working with now, if something were to happen and the funding was cut and we changed our system, I would feel really bad for the students who I work with currently and their parents as well. I seriously believe that there should be no cuts made to the 4201 schools.
Yes, I really do think that it's here, as far as being the deaf school, the most important thing is communication compared to going to mainstream. In mainstream, you don't have that same communication. Here, it's all about communication. It's visual, the socialization. In a mainstream, it'd just be in isolation. The parents don't really communicate as far as the education, as far as the friends, as far as them being here in Mill Neck, as far as being at home. They might have that isolation, and they get involved in the day's events here in school compared to being isolated at home.
In this infant toddler program, where I get these babies at 6 weeks of age until they turn 3, is to work on a daily basis to get that parent to a preschool program, and ours happens to be a state-of-the-art, what everybody in the field of deafness is recommending we have for deaf children, and then to successfully mainstream. I can't see early intervention or any other service that's out there right now that has that expertise and that service coordination that we have here. Okay.
Just be such a disservice to the children, but their parents too. We really support parents. We have a lot of support monthly meetings for the parents, educational things, phone calls, home visits. It would really be a disservice to all the children. Really would not be fair.
Here, you know, they all speak the same language. They all are from the same community, and they understand each other, and you know, they're able to communicate with each other, just like our school looks very similar to a typical to a public school in the way that everyone's communicating using the same language and they're able to communicate with each other. Just like in a public school, pretty much everyone is, you know, speaking, you know, using oral language. So if you were to take, you know, because, you know, what are there, 1 or 2 deaf students into a district, you're going to throw them in there with typical hearing people, and they won't have access to communication with them. They wouldn't be able to sign with them. So how would they be able to express themselves, and, you know, how would they be able to learn, you know? I think, you know, although you learn a lot from a teacher, you learn, I think, maybe even more from your peers, you know, from communicating with them in class and having conversations and, you know, talking, you know, socializing outside of school. I mean, and if they're not part of like a community that is conducive to their language, you know, I think that would be really unfair to them.
It's really important not to separate that social piece from the academic growth. I think it all kind of intertwines, because most of the things that children learn as they're growing up happens through typical communication. Everything that we learn happens through incidental communication. All right, so language development for a hearing impaired child in a school district means that all those conversations about vocabulary or situations that are happening around in the outside community, those children are going to be isolated from that. Here in a school for the deaf, where everybody can communicate, okay, the children have direct access to information. You know, when a lot of our children go home, they'll turn on the news and they really don't understand what's happening on that news broadcast, and their parents can't explain it to them. They come back to the school for the deaf and they can have a conversation about what happened, and the kids are talking about it, and it helps them clarify their thinking. So when I think about socialization, I think about how it's going to help them grow academically as well.
I think I'm here and why my school called a child porn.
Well, I would support keeping Mill Neck open. I would definitely not want to see the school close.
A child porn be so called Mill Neck.
I would say please do not close Mill Neck. Keep the school open.
Because I'm not covered that. Call me one more month.
I'm not really comfortable
That money.
with the government reducing the funding coming to the school.
So my mom told me that. Told me
And from what my mom has told me, that this is the process that's going on now,
about the call.
that Mill Neck may close.
Try have tea. And why I know Bill that helped me too much.
And Mill Neck has helped me so much in the past.
But I was graduate, I'm working.
And now that I've graduated, I'm working with Mill Neck still.
To work in the real world. So I'm not happy that coming now.
And I'm not happy that the government
I'm not coming that coming in my
is going to try and cut the funding for Mill Neck.
Yeah. I tried 4. That give you work, yeah.
And I want Mill Neck Services to continue to provide services for the adult population in the deaf community.
Because sometimes call me BB.
I think the government sometimes can make mistakes.
Because I'm not going back for coming now, I'm finished.
Because I'm not going back to school. The government knows that I'm not going to go back to school.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying for something. Yeah. And
But I still need support from Mill Neck.
Yeah. Try to be fine. Right.
So that I can keep going.
Do you want to work more? Bill, I want to work more
And I do want to work more.
in future someday.
In the future, someday I want to work more.
These people out in the outside world, hate to say this, they have if they don't have a handicapped child, they have no idea what's going on. And it's very depressing. And these are the kids of the future. I mean, these are our kids. And if we don't fight for them, who's going to fight for them? And if they just came to see these programs in different areas, they would be a different impact on how they feel and how the funds should be cut. The funds should be cut someplace else, really. Because what are you trying to tell the kids here? We don't care about you? How are they going to feel? How are they going to grow in society and feel good about themselves if the funds are cut and nobody's to train them the proper way?
And that's
My feelings are very strong on this. I've been in the field for a very long time, and I've seen youngsters that have come from schools from the deaf and also youngsters that have come from mainstream school settings. And I can't imagine what would happen if the schools for the deaf were gone, because if a youngster doesn't have a job by the time they graduate or have work experience, the likelihood of them getting a job later on is it's almost nil. And if there are no adult services available for these folks, I have some very great fears about what might happen to people as far as health and safety, and just the fact that people who are deaf can't express themselves. They can't go to the regular systems and ask for help. People don't know what they're going through, and I think that this is something people need to realize, that they can't just ignore a whole population of individuals. I think that the governor needs to reconsider the decision he's made. I think he needs to become a little bit more sensitized about the needs of people who are deaf, hard of hearing, people who are deaf-blind, and children with physical disabilities that cannot be educated in their home school districts. And I think that without these schools and the adult services that are available to these individuals, we're putting everybody at grave risk.
There's a reason the state of New York has funded these schools for over 150 years, and that is because we do the work of the state, and we do it in an exemplary way, and the state knows that. Up until this year, at least, the state knew that. This year, for reasons that we don't clearly understand, the governor and his advisors have said, I guess we don't need that anymore. And the families of these students and our friends are going to try our best to make sure they understand that the state of New York is well served by these schools, and that the funding should continue.
These 4201 schools provide education and comfort for families of children who have profound challenges. So the issue becomes this: how wide do we make the holes in the safety net? And can we persuade the governor to change his attitude with respect to the funding of the 4201 schools? It's with that in mind that I have circulated a letter requesting the governor to change his position to all the members of the State Assembly. Yes, these are tough economic times. We all know that. They're going to stay tough for a while. But what does it say about us as a people? What does it say about us as a community of New Yorkers when we cannot protect the most vulnerable of our children? So I'm hopeful that at the end of the day, we will be able to agree with the governor to maintain spending for the 4201 schools and to protect those kids, even though we know this is a time of great sacrifice and shared sacrifice. But that's the objective.
So we're asking anybody who is an interest in this issue and supports Mill Neck Manor and the other 4201 schools to do some very simple things. Call the governor's office, email the governor. The governor is on Facebook, and legislators. And if you don't know how to do that, if you have trouble finding out exactly what those addresses or phone numbers are, simply go to our website, millneck.org, and you'll find links there to all of these places. And our message is pretty simple in its core: restore the 4201 funding, or do not destroy the 4201 schools, something to that effect. You don't have to write a very long letter. Get that message to these folks and get it to them now.